series called Those People, and we're talking about how, as Christians, we kind of point our fingers. We're here and there. It's always those people. So today, I want to start by asking a question. What comes to your mind when you think of the word hypocrite? The church. Anybody else? Liar. Voting? Oh, phony, like fake. Gotcha. Good. A lot of times we think of somebody who's a phony, a liar, a fake. And usually we think of someone who calls himself a Christian, yet actually acts entirely like somebody else. You know what I mean? They say one thing, but they actually go out and do something else. They act in a totally different way. One of the biggest reasons that people don't attend church, one of the biggest reasons I hear is that people don't attend church, and I think this is a kind of a cop-out, but anyway, they say, I don't attend church because the church is full of hypocrites. It's full of hypocrites. And I used to get pretty upset with people like that would say those kinds of things, because I was one of those church people, right? And then I looked up the word hypocrite, and I thought, maybe there is something to this. Jesus used the word quite often, and he used it regarding the religious leaders of his day. They should have known better, but Jesus calls them hypocrites. So what is a hypocrite? I looked it up. The word hypocrite comes from the Greek, and it's almost transliterated. It sounds like hypocrite almost, and it means, and write this down in your notes, I'm going to take notes here in your bulletin today. It means this: actor, stage player, one who hides behind a mask. I thought to myself, that makes sense. Do we often wear masks? Not only in here, but out in the world. This is the word that was used to describe the actors in a Greek play. Someone would actually hold a mask in a Greek play. They would make them look happy or sad or angry or nervous or what have you. And that was what they did. They would hold it. The word literally means one who is playing a role, but isn't the real thing. One who is playing a role, but he's not the real thing. And when I looked at that, I thought, how many Christians do we have that come into this building or buildings across the country, churches every Sunday morning, that are playing a role, but aren't the real thing? And we get frustrated with them. In Matthew 15, Jesus takes on the religious leaders of his day. He says, "You hypocrites. You hypocrites." Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you. Isaiah says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They're far away from me." These people talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. They're actors. They're stage players. They're just like the religious leaders of Jesus' day. Unfortunately, we can find these actors among Christians today, and even in this room today. You know, it's the Christian guy who gives the synopsis of the sermon on Monday morning in the break room at work, right? But in the next moment, you find him, he's cussing somebody out, or he's talking inappropriate things about women. You know what I mean? Or it's the kid who's the warrior, the spiritual warrior in our youth group. But in school, he's the cheat, and he's the one. He cheats on tests, and maybe he picks on and bullies younger kids. Or, this is a good one, it's the lady in prayer group who disguises her gossip as prayer requests. Well, I got some moans on that one. I think that was really good. You know what I mean? We're putting on masks, and we're covering up who we really are. So my challenge is, can we take off the masks today and be real with each other? What is our role as as followers of Jesus Christ, right, when it comes to dealing with hypocrites? We know there's hypocrites all around us, including us, right? So what is our role? How do we deal with them? A lot of times, many of us have a hands-off approach. We've just decided that certain people are going to behave in certain ways. And so, we just kind of let them do their thing. And like our life motto is, judge not, lest you be judged. So we keep our mouths shut, right? That's our life motto. Now, others of us, we take a different approach, and it's kind of the other extreme. We take this hyper-confrontational, inwardly judgmental approach. We nitpick everything apart. You're using the wrong Bible translation. We gripe at everything they do, and we zero in on the small things in people's lives, and we have no problem going after those people, right? And so we're very highly confrontational. The problem is with that there are very few things that have caused more harm to the cause of Christianity than Christians who are very judgmental and are always breathing down someone else's neck and telling them what they've done wrong. Okay, so you've got these two extremes. There's got to be a happy medium. What do we do as followers of Jesus Christ? If we're going to confront somebody who's a hypocrite, how do we help those hypocritical people? And before I launch into this, I want to be clear about one thing. If you're a Christian, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, it is not your place to judge those who are not Christians. Hear me in this. We as Christians can't expect worldly people to act like Christians, Christ followers. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not our place to correct them. We can't expect worldly people to act like us. We don't have any right to confront a non-Christian about non-Christian behavior. Get this. The only thing we can do is love them toward a relationship with God. How do I know this? Paul says, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 12. He asks the Corinthian church, what business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? He's asking a rhetorical question. He's basically saying the answer is, it's none of your business. It's none of my business. And he goes on to say, are you not to judge those inside? Uh-oh. We're to judge each other? Oh, this could be fun. And then Paul says, God will judge those outside. God will judge those outside. Leave it to him. Okay, so now, having that said, let's jump in. How do we confront the hypocritical Christian? The Bible is full of examples of godly people lovingly confronting other godly people in order to bring them back into a right place with God. Okay, it's full of examples. In the Old Testament, God sent prophets on his behalf to talk to the people of Israel, to correct them so they get back on a right path toward God. Okay? In the New Testament, God used Paul to confront Peter. God used Jesus to confront the religious leaders of his day. And God can use us, okay, to confront those mask-wearing hypocrites today. Okay, so what is our role in helping hypocrites? Just like the last couple of weeks, our role is we've got to pray. We need to pray to God. We need his help, his wisdom, his guidance as we go and help correct somebody who might be falling away from God or putting on a mask or what have you. We've got to pray. We need God's help, his Holy Spirit, to work in us to lovingly confront hypocrites. Okay, so we need God's wisdom. Turn to Galatians chapter 6. Galatians chapter 6, I don't have a page number right now. I apologize. I'm using the Bible's out of the but Galatians chapter 6, Paul gives us a couple things. We'll draw the first two prayers there from that text. Galatians 6:1 says this. Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. But watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. Now, the first prayer I think we need to pray is this, to help the hypocrite, to confront the hypocrite. God, help me confront with the goal of restoration. Write that in your notes. Help me confront with the goal of restoration. Paul says that we should help them be restored to God. Have you ever gone into an argument with someone and the only goal you had in mind was to be right? Come on, anybody? You go into an argument, they're going out right, they're wrong, and that's how it's going to be. Anybody? Mine just going, okay, good, a couple hands, good. So you go into this argument, the only thing you want to do is be right. Now that's what Paul's kind of talking about avoiding here. He's kind of saying, hey man, that's not how you should approach things. And a lot of holier-than-thou Christian, judgmental Christians go into these confrontations with the attitude of, I'm right, you're wrong, that's how it's going to be. And those conversations typically don't end up very well, do they? Never. Your goal shouldn't be to just be right. Paul's saying our goal should be to help someone else be right with God. Help someone else be right with God. Now, I'm going to be transparent this morning. Some of what I might tell you might be a little shocking. I don't know. Anyway, so I'll be transparent a little bit. Dawn's on the edge of her seat. She's like nervous up here, I can tell. But that's okay. She comes out in the hero of the story, by the way. But here's the deal. While I was at KCC, I'm sorry, let me back up. Before I became a minister, I was a Christian, but I had this really bad temper. I mean, I could fly off the handle pretty easily. All right? Now, growing up, I was taught that when you go and play a game, you're to play competitively. Okay? I don't care if you're playing basketball or Monopoly. You play competitively. You play to win. I don't care, you know. I'm one of these guys that every kid doesn't deserve a trophy. I mean, you can lose every game in the season. You don't get a trophy for that. That's terrible. You play the game to win the game. That's why you play. Otherwise, what's fun, right? Okay, anyway. So, while I was at KCC, Kentucky Christian College, Kentucky Christian University, I played just about every intramural sport that would come out, you know? Flag football, basketball, soccer, field hockey, whatever it was, I was there. I enjoyed playing sports. And so there were moments in these sporting events, these activities, that I would lose my temper. I would, especially if the game wasn't going my way. You know, I would just fly off the handle pretty easily. I remember one night we were playing basketball, and we're nearing the end of the game, and our team we were competitive, we were kind of close, but we were losing. And there was this kid who was on me all night, and I was getting sick of it. I mean, every time I turned around, he's fouling me, he's not calling, nobody's calling, I was getting tired of it. And I mean, he's just relentless. So, every time I got the ball, he's in my face, I'm getting tired of it. There we were clawing our way back to take the lead in this game and hopefully win it. Someone passed me the ball. I decided I'm going to go in for a layup. And I go in for the layup, and I'm right there. Bam! He comes out of nowhere. I mean, just lays me out. I'm on the floor. That was it. It was on. I jumped up off that floor, said a few choice words that you probably shouldn't say that a Christian can't, well, probably anywhere. And it was on. I pushed him back, he hit the floor, and I jumped on top, and I started swinging, and World War III broke out, I'm telling you. And it didn't last very long because they were our teammates, they pulled us and separating us, and we're going out of the game at that point. I had this really bad temper. Really bad temper. And I needed help. It happened to be this girl watching that night. We were dating at that point. And she became my wife. Why? I have no idea. I mean, after seeing that, I think, that would have been the end of it all. But instead of approaching me with a holier than thou, and I'm right, you're wrong, she saw the bad temper I had, and she set out to restore me gently, as Paul said to do here in Galatians chapter 6. Instead of approaching me with this holier than thou, I'm right, you're wrong attitude, she came at me with the love of Jesus Christ, and she gently restored me to be a better person. Women have a way of doing that. I need to maybe write about that. I don't know. Anyway, she came to me and she restored me. Now, if she had come to me and tried to correct me with this, I'm better than you, or you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong attitude, I might have, broken up with her, and my temper maybe never got fixed, and I probably would have turned off a lot of people to Christianity, and I probably wouldn't be here today. That's kind of how I see it. We as Christians have this tendency to turn people off to be Christians because of our attitudes. So we need people in our lives that can restore us gently. Dawn did that lovingly, gently, restored me to what a true follower of Jesus Christ should look like. I love James chapter 5, verses 19 and 20. James says, "My brothers, if one of you should wander from the truth, and someone should bring him back, remember this. Whoever turns a sinner from the error of his way will save him from death and cover over a multitude of sins." I think about how many sins I would have committed had this woman right here not restored me gently to the right way of Jesus Christ. Okay, brother to brother, sister to sister in Christ, there are times when God will call us to lovingly confront with the goal of restoration, right relationship with Jesus Christ. Okay, let me give you the second prayer, and it's this: God, help me confront with caution. Help me to confront with caution. Paul said in Galatians 6:1 that we should watch ourselves, or we may be tempted. Watch ourselves, or we may be tempted. Have you ever found yourself kind of shaking your head in disapproval when somebody's doing something wrong? Yeah, I've been there. Someone's acting up, they're misbehaving, and you're kind of shaking your head, but then later on you find yourself participating in the same misbehavior they were. Anybody? Anyone? Okay, good. The speed limit on the highway, this is kind of an example. The speed limit on the highway is 45 miles an hour. By the way, are they ever going to finish I-76? Coming back from the quads. That's terrible. 45 miles an hour on an interstate. Come on, Anyway, that's a tangent. Speed limit is 45 miles an hour. There you are. You're doing everything you can. You're laying off the gas. You're braking just to stay within that 45 mile an hour speed limit. And what happens? Zoom, zoom. All these cars are going by you 55, 60 miles an hour. You're like, dude, man, I can't believe you're doing that. And then what happens? It probably was him. I find myself like, dude, if they're doing it, so am I. One minute I'm shaking my head in disgust, the next minute I'm joining right along with him, and we're all speeding. That's kind of what we do sometimes. I'll be transparent one more time with you. Oh, wait, yes. When I was young, I was very adamant that people shouldn't smoke. Alright? Adamant. People shouldn't smoke. There were people in my life that smoked, and I would go to them all the time. Thou shalt not smoke. That had to be one of the 10 Commandments, right? Come on, folks, But it's not. It's not in the Bible. I don't know. Anyway, I was really adamant that people shouldn't smoke. So here I was. Smoking's bad for you. You shouldn't do that. It's like a sin, Then one day my friend tempted me with a cigarette. Bible! People love the kids. That's awesome. One day my friend tempted me with a cigarette. I caved. At 10 years old, I began smoking. I know we have kids in the room. Please don't start. It's a terrible, crappy habit. I started smoking. Now, here's the kicker, okay? I put on my mask. Now, since I'm smoking, I would kind of lay off people. Oh no, it was on. Like, I was doing it, nobody knew it, I had my mask on, I was being a hypocrite, and I was going around, and I was adamant that people shouldn't smoke. Still, even though I was doing it. That's being a hypocrite. And Paul warns us, if you're going to approach people about what they're doing in their lives, be careful. Go with caution. Otherwise, you may be tempted to do the same thing. We may cave. That's scary. Okay? Now, Paul writes this in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. He says, if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. there's something else that Paul warns us about. Not only might we be tempted to do what they're doing, but there is a vulnerability to the temptation and sin of pride. Pride. Why? Because you feel right. When we're out there correcting people, we feel right. I'm right, you're wrong. This is how it is. And what happens? We get prideful. I'm better than you. And Paul says, watch out. Watch out. Don't do this. You become prideful. What comes after a pride? The Bible says Scripture says pride comes before a fall. Be very careful. If you think you're standing firm, that's pride, so that you don't fall. So you don't fall. Alright? If you feel passionate enough about a sin to go to somebody and try to correct it, confront it, there may be a reason you feel passionate about that particular sin. Maybe you're struggling with the same thing, that temptation to do that as well. Whatever that is, that's okay. It might be your weakness. You've been impacted by it, whatever it is, whatever the reason. We as Christians need to be careful. Have caution as we confront other people about what they're doing and hiding behind the masks. Okay, so if you're going to confront, number one, do it with the goal of restoration. Number two, take caution. Be careful so that you don't fall. The third prayer is this, and we'll look at a different text. God, help me see when I'm in. Help me see when I'm in. We're all good at pointing the fingers at everybody else, you know. But sometimes we fall into these categories. Okay? Sometimes we fall into this category of hypocrite. I think we can hide behind our masks pretty well sometimes. You know, we can dress up in our Sunday best. We can drive worship on Sunday morning. We sit in the worship service with our best smile painted on our faces. We can answer all the questions in Sunday school because we know the Bible. But then we get back in our cars after worship. We take our masks off. And the drive home, we let loose with all the gossip and slander and cussing and ridicule. And honey, I promise not to do that when we home today. So, that was a joke. I don't do that. But we're good at that. We're good at getting together as Christians and having this good time and putting our masks on. When we leave here, man, it's like a whole different world out there. And I understand it. It's tough. There's temptations out there. We fall into it, and it's hard. When Jesus was talking to the religious leaders, those hypocritical people, he often referred to them as blind guides. I think that's interesting. Blind guides. Isn't that what we're doing when we put on our Christian masks? You know, we cover it up, but we're really, there's no eye holes. It's a mask with no eye holes. We're kind of leading people around in the wrong direction. We don't even see that we're hypocrites sometimes because we can't see ourselves in the mirror when we're acting that way. It's difficult. Remember what King David did? This is such a cool story. No, King David, he wasn't where he was supposed to be. And because he wasn't where he was supposed to be, he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. And because he saw something he wasn't supposed to see, he did something he wasn't supposed to do. Remember King David, he was up on his palace rooftop, and he's kind of looking over the city, and he spots a beautiful girl named Bathsheba taking a bath. So what's he do? He had to have her. Just had to have her. One thing led to another. Pretty soon King David commits adultery with her, gets her pregnant, puts her husband Uriah, on the front lines of battle so he can be killed. King David thinks he gets away with this, right? I got away with this. However, a prophet comes to him one day and confronts him with the goal of restoration. Out of caution. Nathan the prophet tells David, let me tell you a little story. And he goes on and he says, once upon a time there were two men. One man man, he was massively rich. He owned thousands of sheep. Thousands of sheep. Alright? More than you could ever count. The other guy, this guy's dirt poor. He's got one little lamb. He loves and cares for. He calls him by name, and this man follows him everywhere he goes. It was his closest friend. Well, one day, Nathan goes on, a beggar who was hungry comes to the rich guy and he says, I need something to eat. So what does the rich man do? He passes over all his thousands of little lambs, little sheep, to go to the poor man and his little lamb. And the rich man takes that little lamb from the poor man and serves it to the beggar for food, as food. Check out David's reaction. 2 Samuel 12, 5 and 6. David burned with anger. He burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He must pay for that man 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. Nathan looks at David. What's he say? Oh, you're the man. How that must have cut at David's heart. You did it. You're the hypocrite, David. You're the offender, David. And I wonder, how many times does God look at us through our masks and he says, you're the man. You're the woman. You did it. You're the hypocrite. And it's no wonder that Jesus says, quit going around looking at trying to pick little specks out of other people's eyes. We've got this huge 2x4 sticking out of your eye. No wonder Jesus says that. We've got to stop being the Christian police. You know? We've got to stop confronting it without love. We need to come to God and we just need to say, God, where's the hypocrisy in me? Where is the hypocrisy in me? You might be a Christian guy and Satan's got you. Alright? He's got you. He tempts you and you give in and you sit down in front of your computer or whatever it is, you look at that porn and you think you're okay because you got your mask on. Hiding behind Christianity. Satan's got you hooked. But what is that? It's hypocrisy. You're just an actor. You might be a woman of God and Satan's got you out there disrespecting your husband, criticizing him, cutting him down, picking him apart, slandering him. And Satan lies to you by saying, hey, just put on this mask. It'll be okay. No one will ever know anything different. But what is that? It's hypocrisy. Just an actress. There are Christians sitting in churches all across America this morning who put their masks on today, and last night they were out there getting hammered at the bar. Drunk out of their minds. Satan says, oh, you just put on this mask. Nobody will ever know. What is that? It's hypocrisy. You're just an actor. There are Christians all across the country this morning with masks on, hiding, acting like they're good. It's hypocrisy. And here we are pointing our fingers at everyone around us, saying those people. But at the same time, we've got a whole lot of fingers pointing right back at us. And God's saying, let me show you the hypocrisy in your own life. Let me show you what you're doing. When David realized that he was the hypocrite, he says a prayer before God. In Psalm 51:10, he says, create in me a pure heart, O God. renew a steadfast spirit within me. Create in me a clean heart, a pure heart, oh God. Help me to stay steady in you, Lord. Is the church full of hypocrites? I can put on my mask for the best of them. Here's what I'd like us to do. What if we removed our masks? What if we became real with each other, real with the world? You know, stop hiding behind these masks that I am a good person. Yeah, we're good people, okay? But why hide? We can help each other. James says that we should restore each other, help each other out. What if we stop hiding behind our masks of church going, Bible reading, do-gooding, and just admit it? We mess up. We mess up. We sin. And the cool thing is, God forgives us. There's more grace for us. He keeps pouring it out. Pouring it out. It's so cool. During the Great Awakening, Jonathan Edwards was leading a prayer meeting for men. 800 men were going to show up to this prayer meeting. And before the day of the meeting, Edwards received a note from some woman. Didn't know who she was, just kind of random. The note said that her husband was going to be at this prayer meeting. And she asked Jonathan Edwards if the men could pray for him. And she goes on to describe her husband in this note as a man who had become unloving, prideful, selfish, difficult to live with. You know, basically a man. All right. But he needed some help, okay? So Jonathan Edwards decided that he would read the note to the men at this prayer meeting and see if the man would identify himself for prayer. So he reads this note. 800 guys gathered here. And without calling the man by name, he asked that the man who had been described would raise his hand so that the whole assembly could gather around and pray for him. Here's what happened. He describes the man. He says when the man raised his hand. And so almost half the men there raised their hands so they could pray for him. They decided to take off their masks. They decided to take their masks off and be real with the people around them. Would you have raised your hand? Would you have raised your hand? I hope and pray we can take our masks off with each other. We can be real. I'm a real person just like you. I mess up. I admit it today. We all take our masks off and be real with each other in this place. Be real with each other. So we can help each other out and pray for each other and gently restore each other. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to pray. God, help me see when I'm a hypocrite. Help me figure out what I messed up. Help me confront with the idea of restoration.